Time to take a walk down the driveway and check out all the logging equipment that we've got on our property right now.
You should probably take the sled down. Whee!
Where's the sled? Go get the sled. Just hop on it. What's Mom doing?
Getting the sled.
Why is she getting the sled?
Because I want to slide down.
You're going to slide down the driveway because it's so icy?
Because it's so icy.
We've run into a little bit of a freeze-thaw cycle here on the farm.
How was that, Eva?
It was good.
Did you have fun?
Yeah, I did.
So first off, I want to send a big thank you out to everybody that has sent us messages of well wishes and get well and all that good stuff after the last video where I talked about us getting COVID. We are all pretty much on the mend. Jackie and I are back to normal. I've got a cough that's still hanging on, but other than that, I'm cleared to go back to work and we're good to go. This morning, the loggers dropped off the last piece of equipment here on the homestead that they're going to be using to, well, not the last piece, but the last piece of forestry equipment. They still need to bring an excavator in, and that's going to do all the stumping work and the grading work, but they'll probably do the grading work with a dozer, actually. But as far as forestry stuff goes, the whole tree chipper that they brought in today is the last piece of the puzzle. So Emma wanted to go down and see that because she could see it from the house. But I figured I would give you guys just a rundown of the multiple pieces of equipment that are here on the property and the order that they're used in to complete a logging job like this, because it's actually really interesting to see how all these pieces of equipment come together. The first piece of equipment that they brought onto the property that you see behind me is this feller buncher. This is a John Deere 653E, and basically it is a tracked unit that has a head on it that can grab trees with a gigantic saw on the bottom of it. And what it can basically do is go up to a tree, grab it, saw it, and then move it into a pile. The beauty of a machine like this is that the operator can be inside that cab and isn't in a situation where they're going to have trees falling down on them. They can use the head on it to apply pressure to trees and get them to fall in the right direction. It's not a matter of when you're felling with a chainsaw, you have to worry about wind directions and things like that. You do still have to worry about that with this sort of machine to a degree, but it's definitely a lot safer for the operator to use something like this instead of felling trees by hand. The other thing about logging with a feller buncher like this is that you're able to move a lot quicker through the woods than if you were with a chainsaw, because the next piece of equipment, the skidder that comes in behind this, already has all the logs in a pile. They're ready to pick up and go, versus if you were using a chainsaw felling technique, you would have to move those logs into a pile. The skidder would essentially have to do it. It would have to group a couple logs together before it could haul them out of the woods. This is a really cool piece of equipment. This is probably the one that I was most excited to watch work because it makes things so efficient. Trees that, you know, you would never think, or, you know, that would require some very crafty figuring as far as how you were going to fell them. This thing can just go right up to it, cut the bottom, and grab it and put it in a pile. This saw disc is over 300 pounds with carbide tips on it, and it obliterates, just blows right through, you know, even like a 2-foot pine. Really sitting next to this, you can get an idea of just how intense this thing is. So like I said, the feller buncher is the first piece of equipment that's going to come in and start working on a piece of property that you're going to have logged like we are. They had that feller buncher in here almost, I want to say 3 weeks ago at this point. And the second piece of equipment that they brought in after the feller buncher was the skidder. I showed pictures of the skidder very early on in the process. I had Jackie and Emma standing in front of it. This is a John Deere 648G grapple skidder. Now your skidder does exactly what it sounds like. Its main job is to skid the logs out of the woods and into the landing area where you've got your log processing tools kind of stacked up. There's two different kinds of skidders that you're going to see primarily. You're going to have grapple skidders and you're going to have cable skidders. Your grapple skidder essentially has a gigantic claw on it that picks up multiple logs at once, or one really big log. It depends on the size of the skidder, and grabs it, lifts it up off the ground, and then essentially just tractors it out of the woods. Your cable skidders, instead of a grapple like this, they're typically going to have, whoa, look at you guys. That's quite the ride, huh?
That was the best one.
You just came all the way down from the house?
Yes.
That's wild.
Oh, yuck.
So your cable skidders, as opposed to grapple skidders, are going to have essentially a big winch on them, and what they can do is they can use slip chokers to attach to logs, and then they can winch the logs out of the woods. That does actually help if you're felling by chainsaw. You can winch your logs kind of into a pile and then again pick them up and skid them out. Skidders are designed to be really heavy machines. You can think, when you see this thing behind me, think of all the weight that's going to be back here on that grapple when it picks a log up, all the weight that the front of the machine has to offset. So these things are super heavy. You've got these super heavy duty chains on your skidder too. This thing is true four-wheel drive, all four wheels turn on it. With the size of these tires, you can see they're almost 6 feet tall. The chains, I mean the weight of this thing, the ground clearance, it's virtually unstoppable. Skidders typically are also going to have a big, essentially blade on the front of them, kind of like a bulldozer but a little bit smaller. This serves two purposes. One, it's, as I mentioned, these things got to be really heavy. It's a gigantic hunk of metal hanging off the far end of the skidder from where the logs are picked up off the ground. So this definitely helps keep the front end of this machine planted. The second thing is that when this thing's blasting through the woods, it's going through pretty virgin terrain, you know, areas that might not have had roads built or machinery or things like that. So this actually helps the skidder operator if they need to plow a hump flat or push some brush into a hole. This helps them kind of make a road for themselves as they go. Another nice thing about having that blade hanging off the front of a skidder is that if you find yourself in a flood situation, I guess I could say, based on what you saw previously in some of our other videos, you can actually use the blade of your skidder to dig some drainage trenches. Behind me is actually one of the drainage channels that he used the skidder to dig after we had that flooding problem, and you can see it's actually it did a pretty good job of channeling that water away, and there's running water in it right now even though it's like 25 degrees out. So your fellers come through and drop the trees and put them in a pile for the skidder. The skidders grabbed those logs and brought them up to the front of the property where your landing is, or our landing is. The next piece of equipment those logs are going to run into is kind of a 2-for-1. It's a delimber and a slasher. So the delimber is this piece of equipment right here behind me. The goal of this is literally, it has jaws that open up. This gigantic crane here lifts up the tree, puts it into the delimber, and then pulls it through and just strips the branches right off the trunk. When they come out the other side, they're ready for the slasher, and then this crane is able to pick them up and drop them right on the slasher, which is a tool that cuts the logs to length. I'm kneeling right where the logs would go on the slasher. The slasher consists of a platform with these kind of bars that act as cradles where the logs can sit. There's a stopper behind me that will actually adjust the length of how long the logs are going to get cut down to. And once the crane maneuvers the log into the slasher, this gigantic saw blade here is actually able to just cut the logs in half in less than a second. Again, much like all the other equipment that we've looked at so far, this type of setup allows the person, the operator, to be up in the cab, away from the logs, away from things that could move or hurt or crush them. This blade can't even come in contact with another human unless they're standing down here, which is not often the case. The operator controls everything from the safety of a cab, and if a log shifts once it's on this, it's cradled by these massive steel bars. There's no ability for, if you were bucking up this log in the woods with a chainsaw, when you cut through the log, it can shift and fall and possibly injure somebody. The whole idea is that having this large equipment while it does take up space on the landing and it is expensive for the guys that are buying it, it makes the job much safer for everybody in the long run. So you've got your feller buncher, your skidder, your delimber, your slasher. You've got your log truck, which comes in and takes logs and goes. The last piece of the puzzle, at least in our situation, is now your chipper. This right here is a whole tree chipper. You can pick up a tree, I think up to 20 inches, and just dump the base of the tree into this thing, and it's gonna chip the whole thing wherever you want it to go. For us, the importance of this chipper is that it's gonna take the big pile of slash that you see behind the delimber over here and the slasher, and it's gonna turn that into chips that we can sell as biomass, or that the loggers can sell as biomass to local power plants. And they'll actually turn that pile of slash over there that would normally either just get chipped into the ground or just essentially left and, you know, left to decay. You can turn it into power, which is pretty cool. This piece of equipment, again, like all the other ones, you're starting to notice a pattern here. There's a little booth up there for the operator to actually be up and in, and they'll climb up there. They will use a crane that is now folded against the side of the unit. You can see it tucked back there, and there's the boom. The slasher will actually drop the trees over here, and this guy will pick it up and chip it right into a truck, which will take the chips off to the power plant. So that's all the equipment we've got on the property right now. Let me climb up on this pile of chips so you guys can kind of see the entirety of what's going on here. Finn, you coming up to say hi? Come on up. Good boy. There's really two main parts to our cut, and then to a lesser degree a third part. The first part, well, the first two parts are out in front of the house, and that third lesser part is out behind the house. Behind me, you can see on the north side of our driveway, this is kind of the first cut that they went in and did. And this is the larger section of the two. It's a little bit higher up. This is the area that we're planning to turn into pasture primarily, from those maples that you see up there all the way down to a couple of those big pines that you see behind me, which are not going to be here. Those are actually going to get taken out, but down to where those trees are, that is all going to be cleared. And the idea is there will be pasture over there and a greenhouse over there, because that side is going to get more sun. The second aspect of it, the second part that's up here on the front, is from the chipper that you see behind me all along the property boundary on this side up to back that way. This is the side of the property that we're going to put some infrastructure in. We're going to build a barn over here, possibly a small sugar house, and just have some overflow pasture as well. Maybe a sacrificial yard where in the winter time, if we're going to bring animals into the barn, we can have them kind of run over here. And it's not necessarily going to be pasture per se, but it is going to be an area where animals will be from time to time. Between those two areas in the front, we should have plenty of space for whatever animals we want to bring onto the farm, keeping in mind that, you know, we are small. We're not going to be huge anytime soon. The back portion of the property is more a selective cut. They've gone through, they've taken some pines, some hemlocks, some of the softwoods, and left a lot of the hardwoods, the oaks and maples back there. Not that there were many maples, it was mostly oak, if any, hardwoods back there. But the idea being, on that side of things, we wanted to leave it more open for wildlife. I could hunt back there. I could plant some small food plots for deer and other wildlife, and that was the goal behind the back of the house. That was more or less just to offset the cost of the front side of the property for all the clearing work that they're going to do up here, the stumping and the grading. The back was more or less like a, hey, you can go back there and you can take some logs and you know, you can sell those logs and help offset that cost. I feel like this has been all we're talking about lately on the channel, is this logging project, but in all honesty, this time of year, there's not too much going on the homestead. We haven't brought animals on yet. I mean, we're in the planning stages of that, but that's really just kind of sitting around and thinking. It's not necessarily something you guys would want to see video of. Once the loggers take off and it starts warming up, I'm gonna have my work cut out for me. There's gonna be a whole lot more videos of me getting on machines and doing work out there. We'll be using the BX to a certain degree, but I'll probably also be renting some other equipment, a small excavator, a small dozer, to get the work done that I need. They're gonna leave a rough grade on it, but I'm gonna have to come in and do some finish work and whatnot. Once that starts happening, there's gonna be a whole lot of stuff going on. It's gonna hit all at once this year, Jacqueline. So we're gonna have animals coming soon. work up on this going on soon.
Yeah, April's gonna be crazy because we have pigs, ducklings,
Oh, that's right, the ducklings.
Six
meat birds.
meat birds, 6 ducklings,
I just ordered the meat birds from McMurray.
probably turkeys. Definitely turkeys.
Definitely
We
turkeys.
just don't know where we're getting them.
Yeah,
from
we
yet.
definitely turkeys. 15,
And then a random
15 turkeys this year. If you're in New Hampshire and you want a turkey, let us know. Only 15.
and then a random furniture delivery from Jack's parents because they're moving up here, and we're
Yep.
nagging one of their leather couches, so the movers are going to deliver it.
Parents are finally moving up here from New Jersey. I've only been trying to get them to do it for years now. So it's going to be awesome. Not with us. They're going to have another place, but they're moving up here. So as this project wraps up and I get some of that other smaller equipment in here, we'll definitely have more videos on that side of things. Make sure if you're not already subscribed to the channel that you are, if that sort of thing interests you. We're not all about logging here on the channel. We're, a small farm that just happens to be doing some logging right now, but we will have a whole bunch of stuff going on getting forest turned into pasture, because that's kind of the biggest project we have going right now. I'm giving you guys a little bit of behind the scenes content. I'm walking back down to the equipment to film a thumbnail for this video. As always, we thank you for watching and hope you're having a great day. Bye.